This is an optional lecture. It's long, so if you don't have to watch it if you want to. But think about your great teachers. The thing about your great teachers is they always told you something that you carried with you. You don't necessarily remember your courses and things like that, but you do remember the advice that you've given, or if the teacher told you something that gives you insight. And this whole lecture got started because I actually had a student who walked out with me to the parking lot, and he just said, Dr. Cho, these stories and stuff you tell, you should turn it into a lecture. Let people put it all in one place so people can learn about it. And so what was born was the dogma of Dr. Cho. Now, the big lessons, and to give you an example of a lesson is, I don't remember what my digital strategy class was about in business school. I really don't. But the teacher, George Geis, he said one thing that I've taken with me to all my startups. And he said that being part of a startup, you can live off the land, you can hang around for a while. You can duck and dive, you can juke and hide, but sooner or later, you are going to have to fight. You are going to have to prove to the market that you are a viable business and that you actually have an enterprise. And the thing is, I've seen a lot of startups that basically don't understand that they have to fight. They think it's going to be easy. They think they can just cruise into the market, and no, that's not the case. Now, what this section, rhythm, is about is that the entire world has certain things that are truths. And these are the truths that I found that are unwritten. There's no scientific basis for it. But to me, it's part of the rhythm of the universe, and it makes sense to me. And the first one is the momentum theory. This theory I came up with when I was 13 years old. And it's because I just happened to notice that good things and bad things happen to you in life, and they tend to happen in cycles. And so what it comes down to is that all these things in life just even out. And it's true on a larger scale. It's like some people are luckier. Their parents were billionaires. Some people are unluckier. They're born into poverty. The thing is, no one's out to get you. It's just a natural part of life. And the thing to remember is that if things are going bad, eventually they will get good again. Being proactive people, part of the problem is when things go bad, you become impatient. You start to want to be active. You want to fix it. And sometimes you just can't do that. The big thing is when things are getting bad, slow it down. Be patient. Wait for your opportunity when things start going well again. Too often we do lots of things and we flounder. It's like a person in a net. You just make it worse. You just make yourself sink faster. My roommate at MIT graduated with 3 degrees in 4 years. He got a bachelor's in economics, a bachelor's in computer science, and a master's in math. His math dissertation for his master's was the first AI poker playing game. Anyway, very smart guy. We played a lot of poker at MIT, and one night I lost. I lost $10 playing nickels, dimes, and quarters. And that's actually a lot of money for those kind of stakes. And I said to my roommate, Brett, he said, I went through every hand in my head, and I did not do one thing wrong. And he said, I don't know what I could have done differently. And he said to me, in part of my language, you're a dumb shit, Joe. And he said, there are some times you get into runs where nothing will work right. And he said, and there's no logic or reason to it, but it does happen. And the smartest thing you can do in that situation is just quit. He said, when you saw that you were floundering that bad, you should have bailed out earlier. He said, and you could have saved yourself some money. Well, I actually took that to heart. You probably have all had days like that where like nothing goes right. And I did this in a startup. One day, one of my best engineers came to me and he just said, oh my God, things aren't working right. The power supply blew up. This power source failed. This wire broke. Somebody dropped this. I mean, things are going wrong left and right. And it's about 10 a.m. and I told him, go home. And he looked at me, I can't go home. I mean, we have to fix these things. And I just said, Paul, it's just one of those days. It's just one of those days. go home. Go home, pick your kid up. Uh, Enjoy yourself, and we'll go get him tomorrow. And so he understood. He was scratching his head. My boss took my head off for doing that. But the thing is, I was taking advantage of the momentum cycles. And guess what? Eventually, things will turn positive. When things turn positive, push it to the hilt. You've also probably have all experienced positive momentum. And that's when things just keep working out really well. This is why, especially in experimentation, if it's 5 o'clock and things are going well, I told people, look, if you want to stay longer and come in late the next day, or one person put in an 8-hour extra shift, I said, you could skip the next day. And I said, take advantage of when things are going well. And when you have momentum, essentially you get free multipliers. Wind at your back. There's lots of explanations. And the thing is, push it to the hilt. Why? Because it's not going to last forever. Eventually negative momentum will come down. So don't waste your energy when things are going bad, and use your energy when things are going well. And that's the nature of the momentum theory. But also, it's one of attitude too. When things are going bad, I just tell myself, take it easy. Eventually things will go well. The law of exponential return. The thing about life is there's not much difference between good and great. When you think about classes you've got A's in and classes you've got B's in, you probably think, there's really not that much difference in the amount of work required. And so the thing is, if you're willing to put in a little bit more, where most people quit, you can get a higher return. An example is the belief that life isn't linear, that it's exponential. If I put in a level of effort of an 8, I get a certain return level. But on the other hand, if I'm willing to go to 11, I could get more than double. So for 50% more, I get 2x back, and that's what the law of exponential return is about. When I went to get my doctorates at Michigan, Dr. Khalil Najafi, who's now chairman of the department, said to me when I first came in, well, you can get by here. He said, you can do your stuff and you can graduate. He said, but we have a brand new lab, and we have all kinds of tools and things you can use. He said, if you're willing to put in a little more work, he said, you could do something great and not just pass. Subsequently, Dr. Cho won awards. He patented his dissertation. He got excellent reviews from industry. And so the thing is, I just put in a little bit more. And so I got a lot more out of it. The thing about life is things do add up. Can you push yourself every day just to do one more thing? The thing about me in grad school is that a lot of students will quit at 5, or, oh my God, it's 12 o'clock, I gotta go have lunch. And so they try to work on this simple schedule, and it doesn't quite work that way. The average PhD dissertation takes anywhere from 3 to 4 years. And the thing is, Dr. Cho did his in a year and a half. And part of it is when everybody else quit, I put in a little extra time. For example, I knew I had an 8-hour run in the furnace coming up. So if I stayed 2 extra hours, I can get that into the furnace, and I can go home and sleep. And while I'm sleeping, I actually picked up a whole extra day. And the thing is, that 8 hours here, that 8 hours there, it all starts to add up. Can you do just a little bit more? Many of you know that my wife has the disease of lupus. And so what lupus is an autoimmune disease, and it attacks your, pretty much your immune system is attacking your body. But anyway, the thing is, late at night, even when it's like 1, 2 a.m., I look at her coffee pot there. It's not washed out, the water's not set up. And I tell myself, look, if I could just push myself just a little bit, just spend this extra 5 minutes, it will make her so much happier in the morning if her coffee is ready to go and she doesn't have to deal with it. And so subsequently, by me just doing that a little bit, I get a great return. And so if you can push yourself to do one extra thing, like if you're in a startup, it's totally exhausted, but if I could just write this one email and I can go to bed, just tell yourself, just do a little bit more. And the thing you find is it really does add up quite a bit, and it could mean years on your life. When I used to teach engineering, this is the first thing I would start every class off with, the 10-80-10 rule. And what the 10-80-10 rule is that I would get up there and I would say, this is the top 10%. You people are gods. You don't need me. You're going to get A's. You're going to be great. But if you need my help, let me know. And I said, this is the bottom 10%. This isn't to say you're terrible people or anything like that, but maybe electrical engineering isn't quite what you want to do. The thing is, everybody's always like, don't quit, you know, perseverance and all. But now, for example, I'm 5'9". I've got short arms. I've got small hands. I'm never going to make the NBA. And I could say, my dream is to be an NBA player. Well, no, there comes a point where you can't get here from there. There is no path to success. So guess what? There's absolutely nothing wrong with quitting. So what about the middle 80%? And this is a lot of you. And that's that the only thing that separates you is you're all pretty much the same. Somebody might be a little bit better at this, and somebody might be a little bit better at that, but the only thing that separates you is your desire. The thing is, when I was at MIT, my semesters were wildly different. Some, you know, had a lot of the letter A. Some looked like the entire alphabet. But what I found in the end is as long as I worked hard, and I was not a god, and a lot of people, like my roommate with the 3 degrees, was a god. And there were a lot of gods running around in MIT. But the thing I found is I can compete with them. And the biggest thing about competing with them is how badly did I want it? How hard did I want to try? And that pretty much separates you from doing as well as you want to do. But what that also tells you is nobody is better than you. You can fight with the gods. You could be up there with them. But it pretty much comes down to what is your desire to do it. A friend of mine said this about me. Someone said to her, wow, Dr. Cho must be really smart. And she actually started laughing. And she said, Stephen is not smart, but what he does have is great guile. I get the most out of my abilities. And the thing is, when I go up against the gods, guess what? We don't fight on their terms. We fight on my terms. How do you look at things? This is about the view of things. And one thing that you see often in your life is what I call the gray zone. And those are those questions where you can't make up your mind. It's like there is no apparent right answer, and the odds are 50-50. What do you do? Well, maybe I should do this. 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 How many Draper Lab engineers, I might have told this joke, how many Draper Lab engineers does it take to screw in a light bulb? I don't know. We don't have enough data. And that's the thing. These kind of problems create paralysis. Here's how you get out of it. The thing is, a lot of doctoral students get into this. And what it comes down to is ask yourself one simple question. Where do I want to make my mistakes? What can I live with? Meaning, if you are wrong, which wrong option can you live with more easily? For example, if you're putting to win a tournament, if you lose because your putt is short, will that make you feel worse? Or would you feel worse if you putted long? It all depends on the situation. For example, if you putt long and you know there's no absolute way you can make the second putt because there's like a downhill slope or something, maybe you would feel better. No, I feel better about putting short. On the other hand, by putting short, you give yourself no chance to win. It's the same thing like in basketball. Do I go for the hoop or do I go for the backboard? And that's why so many people plank the ball off the back of the hoop because they can't make up their mind. Other questions are 50-50. If they don't tell you the dress code, do you underdress or do you overdress? Do you listen to your boss or not? Do you go fast or go slow? Here's an example of me in the gray zone, and that's at my very first startup. They told me to go down a certain path and to do the project a certain way. And if I did it that way, the upper management would love me. They said they'd give me all kinds of money. I could hire all the people I want and everything else. But deep down inside, I knew they were absolutely wrong, that that way was never going to work and we need to go a different way. But if I went the different way, I put myself in line to get fired. I come out as a guy who's not the team player. I'm defiant to management. And these are real problems you'll run into. And guess what? A lot of people will just say, you got to get along to go along to get along. And they won't have the courage to do it. And personally, I was in hell over that decision. I was a guy in my 20s, and I didn't know what to do. And then I asked myself a simple question: where do I want to make my mistakes? And what it came down to is, if we weren't successful and I did it the way I thought was right, I could live with that. I could live with the rest of my life. I trusted myself and did it. On the other hand, if I did it their way and it failed like I thought it would, I would have been kicking myself the rest of my life. I would say, why didn't you trust yourself? You knew this. Why didn't you listen to yourself? Why did you play politics with other people? And that's an example of the gray zone. For those of you who go into startups and all, or actually anyone, you feel fear. It's natural. Dr. Cho even gets scared once in a while. But the thing is, people do a lot of silly things due to fear, like invade Iraq. That's the thing. So many things we do in this country right now is all about fear. And so when you make decisions out of fear, you make irrational decisions. And this is the thing to remember about fear. And when you do feel scared, you make yourself prey. Essentially, when people see that you're scared, people will take advantage of you. And guess what? People like to induce fear into you. Managers like to induce fear into you. The thing to remember is that fear isn't based on reality. Fear is about something that might happen, not something that actually is going to happen. So guess what? You're revolving your entire life around something that's a figment of your imagination. The thing is, yes, fear is a good thing. Fear is your warning signs going off. But the thing is, don't let it rule you. The thing about fear is that it robs you of life. Like my wife and her lupus. When I first found out she had lupus and I saw how she was doing on her medications and everything else, fortunately she got on a different regimen, but at the time I was looking at it as like, she's not going to live 10 years. And so I got scared. I mean, this is my life, this is what my dream and what I shaped my world around, and it was coming to an end. And then I realized every moment that you are scared, that's a moment you could spend enjoying life with her. And guess what? You're going to fritter away these 10 years being scared about something that hasn't actually happened. And that's the thing to remember. When you get scared, remind yourself it's imaginative. And not only that, but every moment that you spent sitting there being scared instead of living your life, fear is robbing you of your life. Now, a lot of you have probably felt like, oh my God, I'm drowning and too much stuff to do. And you probably associate with this guy. I kind of like the kill me now, to tell you the truth. But what do you do when you're digging in details and there's just too much? The thing is, people have a tendency to jump at details. Like when you say something, people start jumping into the process instead of actually kind of thinking about it. The problem is that in a lot of cases, you are chasing at symptoms. You are not solving the problem. And when you're doing that, all you're doing is wasting a lot of time and energy, and in terms of a startup, money, on chasing things that aren't going to have any real benefit to you. And this is what you do when you're drowning in details. Take a step back, look at the larger picture, and then based on that larger picture, prioritize the top 3 to 5 things. Don't write out the entire 50-piece list. Prioritize the top 3 or 5 things and work on that. Don't work hard, work smart. For example, I'm looking at this. All these little pieces keep falling on the ground, so I keep picking them up one by one, and it just seems endless. If I take a step back, I find out what I'm actually really dealing with is a bird. So I put the bird in a cage, the feathers are isolated, and now I'm not running all over the place chasing after it. Again, the problem versus the symptom. Take a step back. The flip side of that is, what if the world seems too big? That you're looking at the challenges that you're facing and everything like that. Seems like it's all way, way too much. And for that, take 3 things. Put your head down and focus one step at a time. And then you get one thing done, you get another thing done, and next thing you know, you're building momentum. Dr. Cho actually runs into this quite often, and that's that when I think about all the things I have to do, I'm like, oh my God, there's absolutely no way I'm ever going to catch up. There's no way I'm going to be able to do this. And then, then it's, and I just say, okay, look, forget about everything else. Just, okay, I'm going to send this person an email. I need to send this person a message. Don't think about anything else. Just take care of that. Done. Okay, now on to the next thing. You build momentum this way. And what this is about is what's called the Stockdale paradox, which I'll explain in a moment. But what the Stockdale paradox is how do you come to grips with the reality of your situation while maintaining hope? And that's the thing, when you're in a startup, you run into these moments where the world is too big. Remember Andy Dufresne from The Shawshank Redemption? If you haven't seen the movie, go see it. But how long did it take him to get out of prison? 15 years, 20 years? Digging his way out with a spoon. Oops, did I just give the movie away? Sorry. Anyway, the thing is, if he looked at it that way, look at the whole big picture of how long it was going to have him dig out, he would have just given up. For those of you who've seen the movie The Martian, remember Mark Watney, who basically stole from Dr. Cho? And that's that he said, okay, come to grips with the fact that you're going to die and then get to work and soften the problems and work the problems. And so when the world's too big, take it a step at a time. So the Stockdale paradox, what it's actually about is Admiral Stockdale is truly one of the most noblest characters in U.S. history. Admiral Stockdale got shot down in Vietnam and went to the Hanoi Hilton. John McCain, a great patriot, spent 5 years there. Admiral Stockdale spent 7.5. He was the highest ranking officer to spend his time in prison. And the thing is, they wanted to use Stockdale as propaganda for the war. And so what he did is he cut himself across the head to show that prisoners weren't being treated well. And they weren't. They were being tortured just about every day. And so they put a hat on him to cover up the scar and the bruise and everything. And so what Admiral Stockdale did is he took a stool and he bashed himself onto the head across the head until he was unrecognizable. And then what happened next is they tied his hands up so he couldn't do anything. And so during the taping of it, he was blinking in Morse code with his eyes the word torture over and over again. He wasn't going to be used. But the interesting thing is, Admiral Stockdale, when he was asked who made it and who didn't, he said, oh, that's easy. He said, the ones who don't make it are the optimists. And that's because the optimists, what do? Well, they thought, okay, we're going to be home by Christmas. Then Christmas would come, and then Easter would come. Okay, we're going to be home by this Christmas. Then Christmas would come. Then Easter would come, then Thanksgiving would come, and then after a while they would just give up. They would just pretty much die. So the thing is, they just saw it as just too overwhelming. They're never going to get out of this prisoner of war camp. They're getting tortured every day. They just can't take it. And so the big thing is, first you need to come to grips with the reality of your situation. And what do I mean by that? Is this is a typical interview type question. And I was once asked, is this glass half full or half empty? And I answered neither. So, well, what do you mean? And I said, there's 4 ounces of water in the glass. I said, I don't work according to some kind of value judgment of empty or full. I said, I look at things for what they are. And there's 4 ounces of water in that cup. Yeah, I kind of freaked him out. But the thing is, that's the reality of the situation. Don't put a bias on it. It's like, what is your actual situation? This is part of the problem with a lot of the problems in this country, and that's that they're so politicized. We can't come to the grips with reality of the things we need to face. So, the way you get through these tremendous things, and what Admiral Stockdale did to get his people through it, is that he set achievable steps. He told these guys being tortured, look, you're not going to hold out forever, but if you can hold out for a month, then you can tell them this. And if you can hold out for this long, then it's okay to tell them this. And so these guys wouldn't crumble because they thought, oh my God, this is unending, and oh, I'm such a horrible person. By giving them something digestible instead of the whole thing at once, it becomes achievable. They can handle it. And the thing is once you get that step at a time, you start building momentum. Okay, how do I cope with all this stress, especially those of you who have startups or have your own businesses or whatever? How do you deal with it? One of the things to teach yourself is that when you're spazzing out and have problems, breathe. And the way to breathe is inhale through your nose and exhale through your mouth. So go ahead and do it. For those of you in the martial arts, you know this. The thing is, when you watch people breathe through their mouth, the problem is when you breathe through your nose, you breathe through your diaphragm. When you breathe through your mouth, you breathe through your lungs. Your lungs are an awfully big muscle. It makes you more tired. The thing is, fresh oxygen helps you focus. It rejuvenates the cells, and therefore you can get refocused instead of being all stressed out. Breathe. The picture to the right is high ropes. Dr. Cho does not like heights. And what high ropes is about is you climb up this telephone pole, and from this telephone pole, you're supposed to jump off. Now the thing is, on our pole, we didn't have that little platform, and so this thing is like wiggling all over the place, and oh my goodness. Yeah, I got stressed out about it. But anyway, what ended up happening is, what did I do? I just kept breathing and focusing, breathing and focusing. And then when I got up there, contrary to everybody else, you're supposed to jump and essentially catch this, you're supposed to jump from here and catch this trapeze. And so everybody else just got up there and just jumped. Well, I had a strategy. I was like swinging my arms. I was getting momentum. I had my foot on the front of the pole to push off of so I can get distance. And then I made a big mistake. I jumped. I had plenty of distance. My problem is I forgot to take into account gravity. And so the thing is, you're going out, but you're also falling down. And I forgot to take into account gravity. And so I skimmed the trapeze, and it drove me nuts. Stress reduction. Before I went, MIT wrecked me, absolutely wrecked me. Before I went to MIT, I had perfect posture. You could put 10 books on my head and I could walk around and they wouldn't wobble. But then all that studying MIT, all that hunching over, pretty much did me in. Now the thing is, when you look at racers in a race, look at Look at their posture and look at the posture of the winner. The thing is, when you catch yourself slumping or whatever, stand up, straighten up, relax your muscles, and let the stress out. The thing is, you're taking stress in and you're burying it into your body. Look at some older people. Where are they? They're bent over, they're hunched, and basically their stress in their life are dragging them into the grave. To see whether or not your back is straight, when you stand up, put your thumbs out. But up, out. That's the winner. The two little kids there, notice that their postures are perfect. Look at children. Children have perfect posture because they haven't absorbed all the stress in their life. And those are my two grandkids, Nellie and Isaiah, the two older ones. Anyway, so stand. Now, here's an example of stress. Remember President Obama when he entered, young man in 2008, going to change the world. And then when he left office 8 years later, look at him. If you notice his gait, it's a little bit slumped now. He's not up and out. He's now slumped forward a little bit. Look how much older he is. Look at how much the stress of the presidency, the toll it took on him. Here's a picture of Dr. Cho in 2005. That's me and my lovely bride down in Southern California. And now look at Dr. Cho today. Not a heck of a lot of difference, is there? And this is over a period of 10 years. And I'm actually older than President Obama. And so, okay, his job's a little more stressful than mine is. But you get the point. The thing is, don't hold your stress in you. Let it out. Stand. Now, here's another stress reduction coping technique. When you're feeling bad and crappy, and it could be irrational, and it could be due to a number of reasons. Your roommate got a job for $80,000 a year and you can't find a job. Your girlfriend dumped you. Your GPA isn't as good as you think it should be. You get jealous of somebody else. The thing is, for the whole day, it lingers with you. You feel bad and you don't know what it is. And the problem is that we have a tendency to fight these things. We say, nope, I'm fine. There's not a problem. The thing is, let yourself feel it. When you fight it, guess what? It makes it doubly worse because you're spending energy fighting out while these negative thoughts are attacking. Don't fight it, let it out. Go ahead and scream. Go ahead and act like an idiot. Go ahead and feel like, well, just don't take it out on other people. But think your idiot thoughts like, I'm such a loser, or I'm never going to get a girlfriend, or whatever. And then, once you let that out, go ahead and feel it. Then you have to let it go. It's over. Turn your back on it. It's out of your system. Let it go. The thing is, if you're feeling it for too long, then maybe you need some outside help to do that with you. But most negative things you can get rid of in a day, and then you sleep on it, and the next day you're fine. But the thing is, some of these things can linger for days just because you don't deal with it. So deal with it, and then let it go. Now the question is, okay, Dr. Cho, how do I let it go? How do I come to grips with these things? And some of the ways are accept it. You can't change it. My son-in-law is a Patriots fan, and I was rooting for the Seahawks. Disgusting Super Bowl. Even now, looking at that score makes me want to vomit. But they lost. There's nothing I can do to change it. It is what it is. I'm just going to accept it, and I'm just going to move on. There's nothing I can do to change it. On the other hand, I can reject it. I can use the argument, and I said, look, half the Seahawks defense was hurt that game. I mean, remember Richard Sherman was only playing with one arm, Earl Thomas was hurt, Cam Chancellor was hurt. They had a player go out of the game. So the thing is, the Seahawks would have won if they would have been fully healthy. This was all just a fluke. And that's the thing. There's some, like, for example, you go out and you're trying to get money from VCs, and then you get turned down. And so one way of rejecting it is just to know to yourself, look, they look at 100 deals, they pick one. So we weren't in the top 1%. That doesn't mean that we are bad. It's just the odds of playing the game. So I reject the fact that we're not, good or anything. Your third option is fix it. If this is something that you can actually improve at, analyze it, understand what went wrong, and then fix it. And then things will get better. Your next option is to start over. One thing about startups and entrepreneurs, what they don't really think about is teamwork. And the thing is, we've had some entrepreneurs who are like longtime friends, and then their companies just split them apart. And then both sides come to me, they come talk to me, and they get wistful, like, I wish things could just go back to the way they were. But they can't go back to the way they were, because you've gone through this experience, and every time you talk about it, you start fighting about it, and you can't agree on anything. But there's enough in the relationship that you want to reclaim. And so the best thing you can do is start over. It's like, forget any of this happened, but just do one thing. Do one thing of being a good friend. Bring lunch by. Say, hey, do you need me to pick something up for you? Start over. Start your friendship over. Start slowly and rebuild it. And finally, if you can't handle it yourself, get counsel. The thing is, a lot of people don't like to get outside help because it's a sign of weakness or whatever. But if you have good counsel, that's some of the best thing in life that'll help you. I still talk to my junior high school science teacher. This is a woman who knows me. This is a woman who's actually quite wise. And so over all these decades, I've always kept in touch with her because I appreciate good counsel. Code. What do you live? I actually liked the last episode of Samurai Jack, if anybody was curious. But code is, what do you live by? I mean, what are the standards? What are the parameters that you set for yourself? One thing, especially if you are an entrepreneur, be who you need to be. The thing is, you can't always be the manager you want to be. You have to be the person who you need to be. For those of you who are parents, you understand exactly what I'm talking about. There was a period where I was in a big fight with my teenage daughter, and I was right about discipline, I was right about education. And my wife came to me and she said, yes, logically you were right about everything. However, if you push this too hard, you're going to lose her. He said, you have to decide what parent you want to be. And my wife, who's much kinder and wiser with regards to these things, part of the reason why I married her, got me to really thinking. And this was all a fight over a boyfriend. She was dating this guy I didn't like, and we were out playing with this football, and we were throwing it around, and he had his arms all over me, and he was trying to push me around, and it was like, okay, this is the way you want to play, this is what we'll play. So I headbutted him, and I split his lip open, and he went crying to my wife, he hurt me. Yeah, he wasn't getting any brownie points with me. Anyway, my daughter was really upset about this. And so what did I do? I backed off. I backed off because I had to have faith in the fact that she was parented well enough that she would understand that this guy was a jerk. And at that time, even though I believe in discipline and things like that, that wasn't the parent I needed to be. It's the same thing that's going to happen in your startups. There are certain things that you may not like, or, well, they should have to do it because that's their job or something. Well, guess what? Maybe they're overwhelmed and they need a hand up. And so sometimes you can't always be what you want to be. You have to be who you need to be. And finally, everybody talks about Dr. Joe being totally New Jersey. Wherever I go, I'm Jersey. I think one of the greatest compliments I was ever paid is somebody said to me, somebody was talking, they said, Steve's not Korean. He's New Jersey. I always appreciated that. I was raised in the East, and I keep the spirit of the East with me. And this is our view of the world from New Jerseyans, and that's it. The world is a hard place. It is not a kind place. You can't count on that somebody's going to go help you or bail you out. As far as money goes, all money does is help you get by. That's all. It doesn't create value in your life. And there's only one thing in this life that does have value, and those are the people that you can trust to cover your back. Those are the people worth living for. Those are the people worth fighting for. Those are the things in life that are worth dying for. And so, in terms of New Jersey, there are 7 rules that New Jerseyans live by. And this is the code I live by, and hopefully maybe you'll adopt it too. Number 1 is be bad. When you walk into a room, just remember, you are the baddest man in that room. You're well prepared. Nobody can mess with you. Walk in there and be bad. Rule number 2, be cool. The thing is, in a room when everybody's losing it, you're the cool one. You own the room. You control the room. You would be amazed at the number of times I've been around some very successful people and they just totally lose it. They just lose their cool. And so, you be cool just because everybody else loses it. Don't be a chump. Okay, what is a chump? A chump is somebody who fools himself. The thing is, you hear certain things and you start to believe certain things about yourself, about how pretty you are, and how great, and how wonderful, and oh, you can do this and that. And no, you're fooling yourself. Know who you are. Know what it is that you do. Don't be a chump. If you're going down, you take someone with you. Okay, that's not as nasty as it seems, but the spirit is that if you're going to go out and do something, then you go out and you fight. You give it your best. I used to play in this full contact football game, these Harvard graduates. And yes, this was many years ago when I was younger. But it was full contact. We actually played on this high school field. And the thing is, the first drive, the other team went down the field on us. They scored, and everybody was spazzing out, and everybody was panicking. And it's like, oh, what are we going to do? We're going to get slaughtered, et cetera, et cetera. And I just sat there calmly, and then someone, well, what do you think, Steve? What should we do? And I just said, you know something, gentlemen? You can't win every time. Some days, it's just not your day. But before I walk off this field, you're going to at least know that I was here and I came to play. Well, we lost the game, but we put 5 of them in the hospital. We just started hitting people like crazy and all. It was great. So, if you're going down, you take somebody with you. You do not go down soft. Do you have the stones to play the game that you were playing? One time Dr. Cho was in a bar, and there was a gentleman who, let's say, was not quite enamored of me. And he pulled a knife. I grabbed my jacket. I started wrapping it around my left hand. The thing is, at least back in those days, knives didn't intimidate me. The biggest thing about a knife fight is to understand is you will get cut. But guess what? In that moment while you're cutting me, that's my opening to make this, how shall we say, permanent. But the thing is, I just looked at the guy and I just said, you know, Wes, if this is what you want to do, this is what we do. He said, but you got to know one thing. This only ends one way for either of us. Do you have the stones to play this game that you're playing? And the thing is, based on that, you would think I was antagonizing him, but then basically I was letting him know that I wasn't fooling around. And then the next step in it is, I apologized to him for anything, and I said I'd just buy him a beer. I'd diffuse the situation. No, I didn't want to fight either. Um, I probably would have won, and that wouldn't be a good thing. Losing wouldn't be a good thing either. So it was lose-lose. Anyway, you're going to get into situations where you may suddenly find out, I don't have the nerve to play this game. And so the question is, if you don't have the nerve to play that game, then don't get into it. Do you have the stones to play the game that you're playing? Rule number 6 of New Jersey, never give the bastards the satisfaction. The thing about in life is people will try to drag you down, or people will encroach on your standards. Like if everybody's cheating, does that mean you should cheat too? Never give them the satisfaction that they think they have you, or lower yourself to their level. You have your own integrity. You are who you are. Don't lose you. And now, the final, and possibly the most important mystery of New Jersey is you'll have pizza and ice cream after midnight. It'll give you bad dreams. Trust me on this one. I know what I'm talking about. And so, in terms of code, that's the mystery of New Jersey. And here's the final note from the Dogma of Dr. Cho, and it's about joy. There's something I call the doctoral conundrum, and what that is that PhDs will spend 3 to 5 years on their research. And through the whole thing, they just kind of sit there and go, oh my God, all I want to do is graduate. And then what ends up happening is they graduate and they have no idea of what they want to do. Many don't stay in the same job for 2 years because all of a sudden they get out and it's like, oh my God, I got the rest of my life to live. What do I do now? Because the focus was so much. There comes a time where you need to put aside your focus. You need to look around you and appreciate the journey that you're going on. The thing is, me as a doctoral student, I appreciated my research and what I was doing because I had worked in industry. At one time I had 6 pieces of equipment going and they were all robot operated and they were all moving at the same time. And I'm standing in the middle of them. I've got my hands out like this. And it's because I was enjoying the ride. The thing about especially being a student, you're so harried. Take a moment and step back and enjoy your education. Enjoy your learning experience. Don't forget to enjoy the ride.